Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, an almost 40-year-old woman who has nothing but obsessed with the Backstreet Boys since 12 years old, me. Yes, we'll be flying solo into the Backstreet Boys experience, as well as their history-making residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas, the highs, the lows, and the absolute WTFs, because what in the world were some of those graphics about? The Backstreet Boys announced that they were heading back to Las Vegas for another residency, only this time it would be at the newly erected Sphere, that circular venue that you cannot miss driving around the city. That is the perfect addition to Vegas, as it's loud, bright, and capitalism at its finest, aka the essence of Las Vegas. Backstreet Boys were not going to be the first group to play there, as the venue has been open for some time, but they were set to be the first pop act ever to headline. Just another accolade to add to the list as to why they are the best boy band ever. My apologies to the fans of the other one who might have broken BSB's one-week sales record once upon a time, but who failed to make a comeback because one of them can't help but ruin the world tour. However, can I propose that JC jump ship and replace one member of the boys? For reasons. Anyways, plans were promptly made, tickets were acquired, and travel plans were set. Las Vegas bound for the second weekend of the residency at the Sphere on July 20th. However, before we get to the show, let's talk about the bonus feature of the trip, the Backstreet Boys experience over at the Venetian. So this is like a photo op situation / gift shop / homage to the group. Sort of like a mini museum of their accomplishments. And when I say mini, I mean it. One section had things like awards, ensembles, and their platinum records. You could only go into that room if you had some sort of VIP pass. However, I'm not sure why. I saw more clothing at 90s Con when they had one outfit from each Spice Girl. This is the first thing I would have changed. Get ready though, because the experience is what needed the most help. So for this part of the experience, I would have had more costumes. BSB has had some iconic performances and music videos, but there was like one outfit from the Millennium tour and then this random pink suit that no one in my friend group could place. So if the costumes from everybody were available, those would have been perfect. And I do want to sprinkle in the high points of the experience in here as well. So before I get to another thing I would have improved, the photo op options they did have were cute. They had one where you could recreate the Millennium cover, as well as this really adorable one with great lighting that gave you the illusion you were on a private jet of some sort. Very cute. Also cute, some vintage posters and magazines spread about. This leads me to one thing that was heavily missed though, and that was a photo op that would have recreated a bedroom from, say, like 1999. When NSYNC got their star on the Walk of Fame, they did a similar experience like this at Hollywood and Highland out in Los Angeles, and they had a photo op in which they recreated a fan's room. Posters all over, merch, shirts, etc. Given how much merch Backstreet Boys peddled back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it would have been more than enough to do something like that, and I think that was the biggest missed opportunity for this experience. Also, why was Burger King not back on board to have all that stuff on display? That would have been really cute too. Another high was having the merch for sale at the experience so that fans could go before the show, so they weren't stuck holding everything during the actual concert. It was smart and thoughtful, unlike the biggest letdown for me, the TRL recreation. Get ready for it, because here we go. So TRL, Total Request Live, if you don't know, is one of my favorite shows, top 10 of all time. Yes, it's a program where celebrities were interviewed, music videos were shown, there were screaming fans, giving shout outs. I loved it. When Backstreet Boys were on in May 1999, when Millennium was released, they appeared on the show and closed down Times Square in what is still one of the most iconic moments from not only TRL, but MTV's history, next to when Michael Jackson appeared. Anyways, they had cardboard cutouts from that day. Tell me why Howie's was not wearing what he wore that day. Sorry, I'm a TRL historian. I know he did not show up looking like what they had him looking like in this cardboard cutout. They were in matching like earth tones that day. There is also just this random 90s box TV. TRL had these particular screens that came down from the ceiling that had this retro, sort of mid-century modern look to them. 1 or 2 ticket sales from the Sphere could have paid someone to make at least 2 of those. They had music videos playing, and I think playing them on those classic TRL screens would have pushed this part of the experience over the edge and made it a lot better, as well as Howie being in what he actually wore. Also, a TRL photo booth. Backstreet Boys helped make MTV what it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. MTV could have helped them get the original photo booth if it's somewhere still in the studio, maybe in their basement, or given them the rights to use it and whatnot if it was a legality issue. It's those tiny details as a 1999 fangirl I would have liked to see. Which I had a friend go opening weekend, and she said 2 things were MIA the week prior at the experience: the Millennium sign for the album cover photo, as well as this Hobby Lobby like chandelier thing by the staircase that was made of planes and CDs, which, again, the details, why weren't they Backstreet Boys CDs? So that was the experience over there at the Venetian. So now let's talk about the show at the Sphere. There's absolutely nothing I would have changed about the Backstreet Boys. They prove within seconds of starting that there is a reason why they are still performing, and it's not because millennials have this sick attachment to the past. Yes, that might be a small reason, but it does have a lot to do with the fact that they are still performing very well. Yes, there is some talk about Brian's vocals. He is having issues with them, but I'll say I wore earplugs and they do 25 songs, and it wasn't until the 16th that his voice even started to strain a little bit. So for someone who does have those sort of vocal issues, he holds up a lot longer and better than you'd think. However, outside of a few moments from that point on, he was fine. It's not bad to the point where you're like, the show is ruined in any way. It's a very good show. They are still giving you all they have to give and then some. Also, special shout out to Kevin, who is 54 this year and still doing the damn thing like it's 1993. So vocals, dancing, costumes, all good. What was questionable though, the graphics, which is kind of the point of shows at the Sphere. So let's get into that. The Sphere is an immersive whoa moment that has you looking up to the heavens for a truly unique concert experience, and it is impressive to see. However, some of the graphic choices were as questionable as Brian's political beliefs. When the graphics went along with the songs, it was great. Larger Than Life, Get Down, which was the graphic highlight of the show, All I Have to Give, The Perfect Fan, those all made sense. However, why were we in Ferngully at one point? Why were their faces frozen in the mountains like they were cursed by Elsa? What was up with the sexual womanly figures with rose petals? Why did I feel like I was in the middle of Tetris? It felt like the group's team was given X amount of songs to design graphics for, and then the Sphere kind of just went with generic ones they had via their Wondershare account for the rest. As for the Sphere for concerts as a whole, there is a reason they're only booking these sort of legendary acts. Well, there's 2 reasons. The venue is insanely expensive to operate, so they need to book artists who can sell it out. They need to make a profit to keep the lights on, literally inside and out. Secondly, you need acts who are at a point in their career in which they can present more of a spectacle, an experience than a show, which is what this is. It's one of those concerts that I think is cool to see once in your life. But I'm kind of old-fashioned because I'm always going to probably lean more towards just watching an artist with the bare bones of a good performance without all the bells and whistles behind them. However, that's not saying this show is bad because it has bells, whistles, and a 3D shark eating the world above the crowd. As a Backstreet Boy fan, it's definitely worth it at least once, and I think BSB fans would agree. We've all been on this ride a long time, and it's always fun and good to see what they are doing and evolving into. In the end, though, I think the only other artists I'd ever want to see at the Sphere would probably be the Spice Girls. Hint, hint, hint to the Sphere on what would be their biggest profit yet. Lastly, I said this elsewhere, but I'll repeat it here. The best part of Backstreet Boys at the Sphere, the fans. I can't speak on what Taylor Swift has done for music, but as far as the concert experience, she helped inspire artists to go with clothing themes and those friendship bracelets, which were all over the place at the Sphere, as were fans adorned in their best white and blue ensembles. So aside from the remarkable fashion that I loved and appreciated because I love a theme, the fans get a special shout out because it truly warmed my heart at the show, and just seeing online during opening weekend that magical bond there is within the crowd. I get overly emotional thinking about how everyone, especially women of my age, at these shows were all part of this fandom as kids, and how no matter where we were then in life and where we are now, this little boy band has managed to be and remain one of our shared happy places, a genuine safe place where we can, if just for one night, kind of forget that the world around us is currently a very scary place to be, and we could just sing and dance like we're 12 again in our poster-covered bedrooms at 3:30 p.m. watching MTV. So I do think the experience over at the Venetian could have been improved upon if perhaps a round table of superfans were consulted, and the graphics at the Sphere could have aligned more with the live music being played, but all in all, you could never knock Backstreet Boys as performers. Their shows are always going to be great because they are the best at what they do. The proof? Over 30 million records sold, countless tours, and an impact on music. That, in my opinion, might never be matched. The Sphere was correct in booking them. All I have to say is get better at the graphics, get those graphics together. It's a show worth seeing though at least once. My suggestion though, pay attention more to the boys in the background at some points because those graphics, some of them were insane. Anyways, that's all from me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me go on about Backstreet Boys at the Sphere. And everyone, you can find all of Crushgasm's information and information below if you want to go see the Backstreet Boys at the Sphere. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it. Crushgasm is part of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, along with some other pretty cool shows, including An Evening at the Movies, Crime Rewind, Literature Reapers, Love is Black, Masturbators, Men Are the Prize, Season to Season, The Sip List, and Toontastic Journeys. You can go to idnmtrpodcastnetwork.blog to find not only Crushgasm, but all of the aforementioned really cool podcasts. Alrighty.